If you gaze long enough into an abyss, the abyss will gaze back into you. These words represent a profound reflection from Friedrich Nietzsche, setting the tone for our exploration today. In an era saturated with digital connections, loneliness often lurks in the shadows of superficial interactions. Social media, a tool to bridge distances, has ironically fostered a sense of isolation. Nietzsche might argue that this stems from the overindulgence in the spectacle of life rather than meaningful participation. Friedrich Nietzsche's philosophy, which predates the advent of social media and modern technology by over a century, still offers a rich vein of thought that can be interpreted and speculated upon in the context of today's digital age. Nietzsche was deeply concerned with issues of individualism, morality, the nature of truth, and the development of culture. While we can only hypothesize how Nietzsche might have reacted to social media and technology, several aspects of his work provide a foundation for such speculation. Nietzsche might have had mixed feelings about social media's impact on individualism. On one hand, he championed the idea of the Übermensch, or overman, an individual who creates their own values and lives authentically, according to their own standards. Social media platforms could be seen as tools that empower individuals to express themselves and their unique perspectives. However, Nietzsche would likely critique the way social media often promotes conformity, superficiality, and a herd mentality which could hinder the development of true individualism and authenticity. Nietzsche's concept of the will to power might be interpreted in the context of how individuals use social media to assert influence or dominance. He could view the pursuit of likes, followers, and online clout as manifestations of the will to power, albeit in a form that may not contribute meaningfully to personal growth or societal advancement. Nietzsche might argue that such pursuits are driven by a desire for validation rather than an authentic expression of one's values and abilities. Given Nietzsche's critique of objective truths in favor of perspectivism, the idea that knowledge is always from a particular perspective, he might find social media to be both fascinating and troubling. The digital age, with its flood of information and varying perspectives, embodies the fluid nature of truth that Nietzsche discussed. Yet he would likely be critical of the spread of misinformation and the echo chambers that social media can create, which can lead to a fragmented society where shared understanding and dialogue are undermined. Nietzsche's analysis of the impact of technology on culture and values would likely be profound. He might argue that while technology has the potential to liberate individuals and enhance human capabilities, it also poses risks of dehumanization and alienation. The reduction of complex human experiences into quantifiable metrics, likes, shares, comments, could be seen as diminishing the richness of human life and relationships. Finally, Nietzsche's concerns about nihilism, the belief that life lacks objective meaning, purpose, or intrinsic value, might lead him to view social media and technology with caution. He could argue that these tools, by focusing attention on the superficial and transient, might contribute to a sense of meaninglessness and disconnection from deeper values and purposes. In this digital epoch, as the phantom of information haunts every soul, it mirrors the tragedy of our age, the death of the Übermensch, swallowed by the superficial seas of social media. Here, the will to power transforms not into a cry of individual triumph, but a desperate whisper for likes and ephemeral recognition. These platforms, masquerading as bastions of truth and connection, only serve to fracture the very fabric of reality, leading humanity into a labyrinth of echo chambers and false idols. We teeter, ever so precariously, on the brink of a new nihilism, where the depth of human experience is reduced to mere digits and fleeting glances on a screen, eroding the essence of what it means to truly live. The shift towards urban centers and single-person households has distanced individuals from the warmth of community and family. Nietzsche would argue that this is a symptom of a society that values convenience over connection. Friedrich Nietzsche's thoughts on urbanization and the solitude of single living, while not directly addressed in his works, can be inferred from several key aspects of his philosophy. Nietzsche, who lived in the late 19th century, witnessed significant social and cultural changes, including the beginnings of urbanization. His writings, which often focus on individualism, the nature of society, and the search for meaning, offer insights that can be extrapolated to these modern phenomena. Nietzsche often emphasized the importance of individuality and the development of the self. He saw solitude as an essential condition for personal growth and the creation of one's values. In Thus Spoke Zarathustra, he writes, one must still have chaos in oneself to be able to give birth to a dancing star. This quote suggests that solitude, or being apart from the crowd, can lead to profound self-discovery and creativity. Nietzsche might view urbanization as a double-edged sword. On one hand, the anonymity and independence of urban living can provide the space for individual growth, free from the constraints of traditional communal lifestyles. On the other hand, he might caution against the alienation and superficial relationships that can also characterize urban life. Nietzsche's concerns about nihilism, the belief in the absence of objective meaning in life, could be particularly relevant in discussing urbanization and single living. The impersonal nature of urban life, along with the solitude of single living, might exacerbate feelings of meaninglessness or disconnection. Nietzsche might argue that the challenge for individuals in such settings is to create their own meaning and values rather than succumbing to feeling of despair. Nietzsche had a profound appreciation for art and culture, seeing them as essential to human life and a counterbalance to nihilism. In urban settings, where access to diverse forms of art and culture is often greater, Nietzsche might see a valuable opportunity for individuals to engage with these humanizing influences. He might view the thriving cultural life of cities as a way for individuals to find meaning and connection, even in the midst of solitude or alienation. In the city's hush, one grapples with the paradox of growth in solitude. Urban catacombs offer paths to self-discovery, yet risk leading to desolation. High amongst faceless edifices, the individual may forge a unique essence or fade into the monochrome of the masses. Alone in the crowd is the crucible for the birth of one's own star or the abyss of meaninglessness. Here, amidst the urban expanse, lies the stark choice to sculpt a distinct identity or be dissolved by the herd. Old age, often accompanied by a loss of family, friends, and mobility, can be a breeding ground for loneliness. Nietzsche would suggest that we embrace the wisdom and experiences of our older population, fostering intergenerational connections to alleviate their isolation. To explore what Friedrich Nietzsche might have thought about the role of the aging population in today's loneliness epidemic, we can draw upon various aspects of his philosophy. Nietzsche's work, while not directly addressing this specific modern issue, provides a rich tapestry of ideas that can be extrapolated to form a speculative understanding. Nietzsche famously said, "To live is to suffer, to survive is to find some meaning in the suffering." This perspective could be applied to the aging population, who often face increased suffering due to health issues, loss of loved ones, and social isolation. Nietzsche might argue that confronting and understanding this suffering is essential for finding meaning in the later stages of life. The idea of eternal recurrence, a central theme in Nietzsche's thought, posits that one should live as though they would have to relive their life over and over again in exactly the same way. For the aging and lonely, this could be a call to embrace their current life situation, finding depth and value in it, rather than succumbing to despair. Nietzsche emphasized individualism. He also acknowledged the importance of relationships and community. He might suggest that both individual resilience and societal changes are needed to address loneliness in the aging population. As twilight falls on the later years, solitude becomes a canvas for the introspective soul, where suffering carves out the contours of meaning. Let each wrinkle be a testament to personal growth, a defiance of time's cruel passage. In this tranquil acceptance, there is a silent adoration for life's unchosen rhythms, a cherishing of the inevitable dance of loss and gain. It is here, in the quiet reflection, that one finds peace with the certainty of fate. Long work hours and increased mobility for work have eroded personal relationships and community engagement. Nietzsche would argue that this imbalance stems from a misplaced value on productivity over personal fulfillment. Nietzsche emphasized the importance of individualism and the pursuit of one's own path to self-overcoming. He wrote in Thus Spoke Zarathustra, "The individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe. If you try it, you will be lonely often and sometimes frightened, but no price is too high to pay for the privilege of owning yourself. This quote suggests that Nietzsche might see a work-life imbalance that leads to loneliness as a societal issue, but also as an individual challenge. The tribe in modern times could be seen as the demands of work and society that overshadow personal needs and self-cultivation. Nietzsche also had a concept called the will to power, which he believed was the main driving force in humans, a strong desire to reach the utmost potential in life. He stated, "He who has a why to live can bear almost anyhow." This could be interpreted to mean that if one's work is aligned with their personal why or their true passions and ambitions, the struggle of work-life balance might be endured more easily because the work itself is part of self-fulfillment. Nietzsche recognized loneliness as a complex state that could be both detrimental and beneficial. He said loneliness sharpens one's vision, indicating that solitude could lead to greater insights. However, if this loneliness is a byproduct of an unbalanced life where work overshadows personal relationships and self-care, it might be viewed as a negative consequence of modern society's priorities. The modern laborer, Sisyphus reborn, toils without end. This relentless pursuit, a thief of the spirit. I beseech you to deny the conformity of the hive mind and reclaim your hours. Seek work that echoes the passions of your heart and therein discover a vocation dedicated to self-overcoming and the realization of your own excellence. Changes in societal norms, such as the emphasis on individual achievement over communal activities, have weakened social bonds. Nietzsche might recommend that we study this trend and promote an evolution of these individualistic values that strengthen each person at the individual level. In turn, this would inherently strengthen the fabric of the community. Nietzsche would most likely see loneliness as an inevitable part of the struggle for self-ownership and individuality. He might argue that changes in societal norms that promote a collective identity over individual uniqueness could contribute to the loneliness epidemic by stifling personal growth and self-actualization. In The Gay Science, Nietzsche also comments on the effects of societal change. What if a regressive trait were inherent in the good man? Likewise, a danger, a seduction, a poison, a narcotic, so that the present lived at the expense of the future, perhaps more comfortably and less dangerously, but at the same time, in a meaner style, more basely. Here, Nietzsche may be cautioning against the comfort offered by conforming to societal norms, suggesting that it could lead to a primal, more base existence. Nietzsche's concept of the will to power, the main driving force in humans, according to his philosophy, suggests that people are constantly striving for control over their environment and themselves. A loneliness epidemic could be seen as a failure of the will to power, where societal norms do not allow for or suppress the expression of this fundamental drive. This age of the technological exalts the lone triumph, but it is merely an echo of one's true self-worth. Do not deceive yourself with the deception of what the so-called last man might value. Rather seek the truth of your authentic nature and beat only one path through the thicket of all that impedes this goal. The decline in engagement with community groups and religious organizations can lead to feelings of loneliness. Nietzsche is perhaps best known for his declaration that God is dead, which reflects his belief in the waning influence of Christianity in the modern world, found in The Gay Science. This statement was not just about the literal belief in God, but also about the broader framework of Christian moral and metaphysical principles that had underpinned Western society for centuries. In The Antichrist, Nietzsche critiques Christianity as a religion that denies life and promotes nihilistic values. He might view the decline of religious participation as a result of the inherent life-denying aspects of Christianity coming to light. Nietzsche would probably see the loneliness epidemic as a symptom of the deeper malaise that Christianity has instilled in the Western psyche, which he thought emphasized otherworldliness and a disdain for earthly existence. From Nietzsche's perspective, the loneliness epidemic could be interpreted as the outcome of a morality that valued the afterlife over life on earth, leading to an alienation from one's natural instincts and desires. He would likely argue that the modern struggle with loneliness is a result of the failure to replace the life-denying moral values of Christianity with life-affirming ones. On the Genealogy of Morals, Nietzsche discusses the origins of our moral precepts and the value systems that stem from them. He might suggest that the feelings of loneliness in the world today are related to the slave morality that Christianity propagated. According to Nietzsche, slave morality values things like humility, selflessness, and meekness, which he argues arose from the resentment of the weak towards the strong. This, Nietzsche might say, has left individuals without the tools to create strong interpersonal bonds based on mutual respect and power, as the predominant morality does not encourage the kind of self-assertion and individualism that he believes are necessary for healthy relationships. In this context, Nietzsche would likely emphasize the need to overcome the vestiges of slave morality to combat loneliness. Instead of seeking solace in a religious community that promotes self-denial and pity, Nietzsche might argue for a revaluation of values that encourages self-overcoming, the pursuit of personal excellence, and the creation of new life-affirming communities. This revaluation would form the basis of new social structures and communities that combat loneliness not through shared suffering or hope for another life, but through shared striving for excellence and affirmation of this life. As the divine chorus fades, humanity stumbles, yearning for a lost unity. Solitude, once a stranger, now a constant companion. The relics of faith no longer bind us, leaving each soul to seek its own anthem amidst the silence. In the twilight of gods, we must kindle new fires of fellowship, lest we dwell in the cold embrace of isolation. Competitive and high-pressure environments in schools can foster feelings of isolation among students. Furthermore, students are no longer offered an educational experience that prepares the individual for life's many challenges. Nietzsche often emphasized the development of individual potential and the pursuit of personal excellence over conforming to the social norms. His educational philosophy, as suggested in Human, All Too Human, supports the cultivation of free thinkers who are capable of rigorous, cautious, and consistent reasoning. In the context of today's loneliness epidemic, Nietzsche's stance on education might suggest that the loneliness people feel could partly be due to a lack of meaningful engagement with one's own self and the outer world, which is a consequence of an education system that does not prioritize individual thought and critical reasoning. Nietzsche might argue that if schools were to focus more on teaching students how to think critically and independently, individuals might be better equipped to form authentic connections with themselves and others, thereby alleviating feelings of loneliness. He might also imply that the development of the free spirit, an individual who is not only self-reliant but also deeply reflective and introspective, could lead to a greater sense of purpose and belonging, as individuals would be more connected to the human experience at large, which transcends immediate social circles. Furthermore, Nietzsche would likely see education as a means to confront and understand the human condition, including our inherent solitude. By encouraging the pursuit of knowledge and self-awareness, education could help individuals find solace in their internal world, making loneliness less of a burden and more of a state that can lead to profound personal growth. If we were to speculate based on Nietzsche's philosophy, the role of education in today's world, particularly concerning the loneliness epidemic, would be to empower individuals to be self-sufficient in their thinking and emotional resilience. Such an education would not only aim to mitigate loneliness through communal or societal integration, but also by fostering a strong, introspective and reflective individual identity that finds comfort and meaning within itself and its own pursuits. In the modern theatre of education, where many a mind becomes a mere echo, the true task is to awaken the solitary thinker. The student who converses with themselves armed with critical thought breaks the chains of loneliness, for in the pursuit of knowledge, as our own sculptor, we carve a path to shared humanity. Friedrich Nietzsche might view the modern loneliness epidemic as a multifaceted phenomenon deeply rooted in societal and existential shifts. He would likely perceive it as a consequence of the decline of traditional values and communal structures, reflecting his notion of the death of God and the societal move towards nihilism. Nietzsche might interpret this epidemic not just as a social crisis, but also as an opportunity for profound individual growth, echoing his emphasis on the value of solitude in personal development. He could see it as a challenge to the complacency of the last man, potentially spurring the emergence of the Übermensch or Overman, who creates new values and lives authentically. In his view, the loneliness epidemic might also expose the downsides of modernity's herd mentality, prompting a call for individual responsibility and self-overcoming as antidotes to the pervasive sense of disconnection and meaninglessness in the modern world. He who climbs upon the highest mountains laughs at all tragedies, real or imaginary. Thus spoke Zarathustra,